All right, we are live on YouTube and good to go.
All right, here we go. All right, good evening, everyone. It is 7:03 p.m. on Tuesday, July 9th, 2024. And I now call to order the 2141st regular meeting of the City of College Place City Council. Will the clerk please take roll call?
Councilmember Jessup,
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland,
Present.
Councilmember Espinosa,
Present.
Councilmember Peterson,
Present.
Councilmember Williams,
Present.
Councilmember Sherman,
Present.
and Councilmember Boyle has asked to be excused. We do have a quorum.
Perfect, thank you. All right, will you all please join me in Pledge of Allegiance? All right, thank you. It's now time for public comment. Sherry or Ethan, did anyone submit a written comment in advance or request to speak via telephone or virtually?
We had no prior requests and we have no public attendees.
All right, and there is no one in the lobby in council chambers. So then we're going to just move on to our consent agenda since there's nobody here for public comment. So consent agenda consists of tonight's agenda, July 9th, 2024, the council minutes from June 25th, 2024, the council workshop minutes from July 2nd, 2024, April financials, and excusing the absence of Councilmember Boyle. Are there any items any member of the council would like removed from the consent agenda this time? And if not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. There's a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
That was in favor. I was
Thank
just
you.
slow to unmute.
And any opposed? All right, it's unanimous. The ayes have it and the motion is passed. There's no presentations tonight and there's no public hearings. So we're going to move on to our action items. But there's 7 of those on the agenda tonight. First is the Washington State Department of Transportation Railway Highway Crossing Grant for Northeast Sampson and Northeast Wallula by Mr. Rizzutello.
Okay, thank you. So for this agenda item, it's a resolution of support for a grant application in the State Department of Transportation for their railway crossing grant. The big issue is originally we were trying to do this project as part of the Damson and Rose Street lighting work. However, when dealing with federal Class 1 railroads, it becomes a very fascinating venture because they can make various demands that you can't really get out of because of acts from the early 1920s. So they started adding all the stuff about changing their gates at our cost, sidewalks, all this other stuff, and it ballooned into this monstrosity where we couldn't really put it into the Damson Rose project. So we had to separate it out. And in fact, this even endangered the Valley Transit stopover at Damson because we originally wanted to put it in, and then essentially they wanted to throw all this other stuff in there. So what we're going to end up doing is all of it will get buried. As far as the transit stopover on the railroad side, all of that's going to get buried into this because Columbia Rail operates that railroad, but unfortunately the actual owner of it is Union Pacific, and Class 1 railroads are very, very difficult to deal with. Thus, we're doing this project for the Damson crossing, and then also in the future, as we deal with urban growth areas, there is the concept of getting some land adjacent to Sunset Villa. So we're going to end up revisiting this issue down the road with the Wallula Avenue crossing. So the concept here is to just rip the Band-Aid off and deal with it it at the same time, so we're like done with it. And put conduits and stuff underneath, so that way, knock on wood, we don't have to deal with the railroads again.
All right. Let's kind of go through council members for any questions or comments, and we'll start with Councilmember Jessup.
No, thank you as always.
Councilmember Cleveland? None. Councilmember Espinosa? No questions. Councilmember Peterson?
No questions.
Councilmember Sherman? I'll go back to, no questions. Councilmember Williams?
No questions, thank you.
All right, so we have no questions or comments. Do we have a motion for this resolution?
I'll motion to recommend adoption of resolution number 24-050, authorizing supporting city administrator submitting grant application into the WS Railway Highway Crossings Grant Application for Northeast Sampson and Northeast Wallula crossings at Union Pacific Railroad operated by Columbia Rail. Second, Peterson.
Great, we have a first and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Next is the resolution of support for the state TIB Urban Aerial and Active Transportation Program for Southeast 12th and Larch Roundabout Project.
Okay, thank you for this item. This is dealing with the 12th and Larch intersection. Over the past several years, as federal grant monies were getting out, we were trying to deal with 12th Street as an entire corridor, but unfortunately, those projects didn't come to pass because it didn't score at the top. So how we're going to approach it next is a Transportation Improvement Board, as of late, seems to be really obsessed with roundabouts and prioritizing them everywhere. So, the study that was done about roughly 6 years ago said that by 2023, the warrants would be such to trigger one at that intersection. So, this grant would basically go to improve that intersection to a roundabout and then start the roadway treatments on 12th going up to Dewey, Sky, and then on Larch from Dewey up to the Marine Garrison Drive area. So at least then it starts a treatment that we can build upon for future phases. So that's the general plan of action for this one. So at least that way we have a start of 12th Street. And as the bigger grants come out, we'll continue to try to chase them down and deal with the whole corridor. But at least this is a good first step.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Jessup, questions or comments? None. Councilmember Cleveland? None. Councilmember Espinosa?
Just a comment, I think from a safety perspective, it's a good project to think about because there's just seems to be a lot of accidents in that intersection. So I think this will alleviate some of that going into the future. So I think it's a good thing for our community.
Councilmember Peterson?
No questions.
Councilmember Williams?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Sherman?
No questions.
I have a quick question, Mike. On one of the pictures, the one that's has the actual kind of like aerial view, and then it has the rendering drawing there.
Yeah.
Do I see crosswalks across each street, or what are those black lines?
So there would be essentially crosswalks with rapid flashing
Perfect.
beacons that people could press. So that's how they do design those like nowadays. So in some of the conceptuals, you'll see that. Basically, the state has a method of where they have a boilerplate roundabout designs, and if you want their money, that's what you end up doing.
Oh, I really like it if the picture's correct, that it's further away from the actual corner because the one I think at Plaza, is that the one I see that it's the crosswalks are kind of almost at the corner. So by the time people reach there, they don't see the person waiting to cross. So I think, I think this is great.
Yep.
I really like it. I like the rapid flashing. I think that always adds attention. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Peterson? Oh,
No.
That was your question.
Yeah.
Yes, but I thought he was raising his hand for another question.
Just involved in my apologize.
Okay, all right. So if there's no questions or comments, do we have a motion for this resolution?
I move to adopt resolution number 24-051, which supports the city's southeast 12th and large roundabout urban arterial and active transportation program grant into the State Transportation Improvement Board.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. We have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. All right, moving on along, there is the resolution of support for state TIB Urban Arterial Grant Program for Commercial and Economic Development Band Whitman Drive Roundabout.
Okay, we've talked about this quite a bit as a general source of irritation, but with this, the idea here is to go to Transportation Improvement Board to pay for that roundabout, so that way we can get freight into that south property. The developer would contribute essentially what they were going to and the right thing right out. And then the rest of it is a split for the TIB grant and their Transportation Benefit District. I talked with TIB, the Association of Washington Cities, and they seem very much on board with this. So
Great. All right, Councilmember Jessup?
No, I don't know if this is exactly the best time to ask, but just real quick, during the construction, did we ever figure out if it's like who's in charge of allowing access to that coffee shop, or is that going to cost us more later to have to redirect for a while, or is this kind of a?
I have asked JUB to come up with some alternate plans to try to get like transportation in there. So it ultimately, anything you ask ends up costing more essentially, but I'm working through that with them right now as far as alternate means of access.
Great, thanks for doing that and thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, and I also encourage early communication with the owner.
Yeah.
So she doesn't panic.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cleveland? No questions. Councilmember Espinosa? None. Councilmember Peterson?
Thank you.
Councilmember Williams?
I'm just looking at the memo by JUB engineers, and we're not actually talking about putting in a roundabout at the corner.
No, no, they.
Oh, I see.
prepared-
Never mind. I was misinterpreting what I was seeing on the drawings. It's not actually roundabouts. Never mind. No questions.
Yeah.
Let's erase that. Okay. Councilmember Sherman?
I feel the same way, Melody, because every time he says Whitman, I'm thinking a different intersection
Yeah.
that I won't say. And then that, even though I know what we're talking about, it's not. Anyway, no, I don't have
Yeah.
any questions. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
All right. If there's no further questions or comments, do we have a motion for this resolution, please?
Yeah.
I move to adopt resolution number 24-052, which supports the city's application into the State Transportation Improvement Board Urban Arterial Grant Program, Economic Development Band for Whitman Drive Roundabout adjacent to Home Depot.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Peterson.
Perfect. We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Okay, fourth item is the Walla Walla 2050 capital request for fiscal year 2025 Gardenia Concept Engineering, decant facility construction and the river gauge installation.
Hey, thank you. So this is a bi-state group that tends to operate with the state of Washington Department of Ecology and Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. Until as of late, they really never engaged the city of College Place, nor was there a realization that they had some stuff that could be funded inside our city limits. As of late, they did approach us, and it turns out they can fund quite a bit. Why this is interesting is because this is a test group that's within the state of Washington Department of Ecology, the Office of the Columbia River, and they actually get their own legislative earmark, if you will, for just random projects to be funded. So it's outside the grant program. So you essentially just get money and it slides in the budget in a weird way. So with this, as soon as found that, we submitted 3 projects, presented them, and then we got invited to fill out the final applications that ultimately go to Office of Columbia River for them to put in the legislative ask for next session. So the first one ties back to what we discussed at the workshop. So while the 2 divisions of ecology are talking about this whole Gardena thing, the general ask is, okay, well, your water resources folks are intrigued by this, so help us engineer it and figure out the game plan. So the ask there is for $2 million to get them to pay for all of that initial work. Then the other one is that we've been engineering for decant facility, and that's where it essentially separates solids from the stormwater for public works. And right now we don't have one. So we were going to end up going to Department of Ecology for grant dollars, but it looks like we can just get an outright earmark for that. So might as well try to. And then the third one is for the river gauge. And this is really important because you all may or may not remember this from a couple of years ago, but we were trying to enroll in what was called the NRCS PL566 program. And if we were accepted into that, essentially it would pay for all of our stormwater capital. The problem is that USDA, they paid for this PIF, or this preliminary final investigative report, but for whatever reason, they got hung up on you have to prove your cost and benefit. And the problem is because there's no river gauges upstream or downstream on Garrison and Stone Creek, we reached an impasse. And typically they'll usually fund that sort of thing, but for whatever reason they didn't and put it back on us. So we're in this like weird transitory phase where we need river gauges to get the data to then finally get the PIFR done to get them to pay for stuff. So that's what all 3 are for. The river gauges, if funded, that would pay to put river gauges at Lions Park. So that would be Garrison Creek entering the city, then it going out at the treatment plant, and then for Stone Creek, put one near Hop Thief, and then out of town over by Southwest Teal near where lift station 7 in the well is at.
All right, it's be a significant grant if we got it. Councilmember Jessup? Councilmember Cleveland? Nothing. Councilmember Espinosa? Nothing. Councilmember Peterson?
Mike, from the workshop, a question about the Gardenia.
Yeah.
Their investment at that end is significant.
Yeah.
I mean, and the question I had that I didn't ask, I think, at the workshop was, where are they getting their funding? Is that grants or is that, or do you know?
Yeah, so Gardena, they've been engaged in this Wawa 2050 group for a long time.
Right.
For whatever reason, I don't understand the history, but we were just like left out of it, and now we're heavily involved in it now that we're aware that they're a thing. So
Okay, so
yeah.
state.
It's it's a bi-state effort, and they get all their money for the most part from the state, and then also from like rates inside their irrigation district, because that's a very unique district because they have a junior water right, and the thing is they actually spray water in the ground like before winter, and they
I'm sorry, we seem to have lost the sound, at least I have.
I have also.
I realize I can't tell if you're saying, oh, I see your hand is up.
I can hear Melody, but I cannot hear.
I can hear Ray.
Okay, can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
Okay, we can hear you
Yep.
too.
Yep.
Did you have a question or comment?
I actually basically had a comment, which is that the river gauge installation I think is probably an incredibly high priority because there's not a lot of funding for that, but it sets up what we need to know in order to do a lot of different things. So if we can get funding for those river gauge stations, we should make that a very high priority.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Sherman.
No questions.
All right. If there's no further questions or comments, can I get a recommendation for this resolution?
Councilmember Williams, I will move to recommend adoption of resolution number 24-053, authorizing and supporting city capital requests to Walla Walla 2050 for Gardenia Concept Engineering, $2 million, decamp facility construction, $1 million, and river gauge installation, $125,520.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great. We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. We're gonna move right along to number 5. Make sure I'm in the right one. It's a resolution of support for the Walla Walla County .09 grant Lions Park Community Center architectural plans. Mr. Zatello.
Thank you. So for a community center, we were in the process of getting all paperwork for the state earmark and then also the legislative earmarks. And with those earmarks we put in were essentially they're mainly for construction. You can do architectural plans, but the big issue is if you touch those architectural plans, both with the state and the architecture money, there's actually guaranteed amounts like you have to pay for each of them. So they actually it actually fluffs up the cost quite a bit, actually to an obscene amount. So trying to figure out alternate methods of paying for it would be key here. So in years past, we've gone to the Port .09 money. A lot of people don't know, but when they formed .09 in the county, it was actually split in two. So Port gets half of it, but then the county gets another half. So the concept in this case is to go to the county portion to help pay for the architecture plans for that.
All right, Councilmember Jessup, none, Councilmember Cleveland, none, Councilmember Espinosa.
Are we still accounting for the tenants that would possibly be there, the school, the library school district and the
Yes.
There was a daycare facility or something of that sort that you had mentioned.
Yes, yeah, and I mean, that's how all the earmarks are coming together because one of them is for library stuff, another one's for childcare, and then the commercial kitchen. It turned out we turned in earmarks the same time as the community college, and Senator Cantwell actually liked ours better, so we got the commercial kitchen money. So the community college is probably going to be a partner with us on that commercial kitchen element now. So,
Good, thank you.
yeah.
Councilmember Peterson,
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
So how much of the architectural plans is this? So we're asking for 200,000 from this source. Is that the whole cost or?
So finding out what it costs outside of those grant programs, I think it's going to end up being roughly around $300,000, but $100,000 difference. There's various ways to cover that, either from REIT 2 is a good option, or even some foundations around here, which I think is worth it, because if we spend from those other earmarks and stuff, it's gonna fluff the cost too much. Which I mean, we could do, but that just isn't cool. So
Oh, I mean, I totally support this. I just wanted to know how much other money we needed to find. So,
yeah, and the reason this is 200,000 is because that is a statutory max the county has set per requirement.
fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Sherman?
How, does the county get a lot of applications for this? How
No.
likely do we think this is?
Very likely because seems like most people aren't even aware there's like another half floating around.
Cool.
So
Thanks.
Mike, I have just a few quick questions. And looking at this rendering, by north, is that the
design,
that
the
the
design west, yeah.
design? So where it says preschool classrooms 1 and 2.
Yeah.
That's the daycare, I'm assuming. Is the daycare going to be a preschool? Are we working it that way?
That is how we are working. So that community minded enterprises, they were the initial ones that helped us with that. And they're like a clearinghouse for these like ECAP slots.
Mhm.
And essentially, one of the main providers here in the Valley for that sort of the thing is like the YMCA. So
Right.
ultimately the Y is collaborating with us because they're the ones who are the operator. That community minded enterprises just merely functions as like a clearinghouse, if you will, for slots statewide.
That makes it even more exciting,
Yeah.
right? To provide some
Yeah.
type of preschool education
Yeah.
even rather. And then I really like, and I know I mentioned this to you, and you told me it was gonna be there, but I really like that separate preschool entry
Yeah.
for safety reasons.
Yeah.
So I think that's an excellent design addition, but making sure that they're all secured, a little separate from the rest of it. And finally, regarding the potential for partnering with the community college, that also, I mean, I feel bad, for them. But I think it's great because it's gonna bring, if it happens, a partnership to College Place, right? And I really like that idea of bringing those types of things here.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Do we have a motion for this resolution?
Motion to approve resolution number 24-054, supporting the city's grant application into the County .09 grant program for Lions Park Community Center architectural plans for $200,000.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Councilmember Williams, second.
Okay, Councilmember Espinosa seconded first.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, wonderful. The ayes have it and the motion is passed. All right, number 6 is Mike's going to present on the potential water system consolidation feasibility studies with the State Department of Health Planning Grant Program.
Thank you. So this item was discussed at length at the previous meeting. So this is just resolutions of support, so I can go turn that in. Talked with the various entities in this case. So majority of this would be a grant. Anything that would go beyond that, they're ultimately on the hook for. So the first one's Villages of Garrison Creek. Basically, all the earlier phases before like the last 8 years were all private HOA owned behind one meter, and it's faltering. So thus why they keep chasing leaks. So that's why they're interested in figuring out a way for us to take it over and to operate it in a decent fashion. Then Irrigation District 14, that predates the city, and back when it was onion fields and such. But now they're providing potable water for a decent portion of College Place, so everything northwest of Whitman and College, and then the neighborhood between Davis Academy, 4th, and then up through Whitman. And they can't really find operators anymore, period. So really it's like it's a safety issue if we don't really do anything. everything here. Their system is pretty good though. They stayed on the up and up, fixing their lines, and they actually just put in new wells too. So that could always benefit us too. I will mention as part of that irrigation 14 work, we are also going to have them examine irrigation 12 and 9 because those two neighboring districts are somewhat tied in. So like if you take 14, you somewhat end up with the other two as well. So that one is just figuring out what everything is, what the liability is. The state has expressed it with these irrigation districts. They're really wanting to make them go away, if you will. So they pretty much said their pocketbook is open because it's more of a paying for them to run everything. So that's really what this endeavor is about.
Thank you, Mike. All right, we're gonna reverse it. Councilmember Sherman.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
Is Garrison Creek to the point where we can get, counted as emergency money?
In talking with the Department of Health, they felt it would be available for that. Thus why the urgency to do this plan and pretty much try to attack it in tandem.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Peterson.
Mike, when we inherit, well, if we inherited these they're up to our standards as far as
Well,
depth and
as far as inheriting stuff, with Villages Garrison Creek, our water already goes to them. It's just the pipes. And if we took them over, part of the deal would be upgrading everything to our standard and then take it over. For irrigation 14, the new wells are to our standard because the current operator is Paul Hartwig, who was our public works director. It's just he wants to retire and frankly, they can't find anyone. So they're in a little bit of a situation, if you will. And same with the pipes, because frankly, it was Paul running it. Everything is to the standards. Now, irrigation 12 and 9, that's a whole other can of worms, but we aren't going to know that ultimately until a study gets done because, yeah.
okay, all right, thanks.
Councilmember Espinosa.
No.
Councilmember Cleveland. Sorry, I confused myself going the other direction.
You can comment with that. No questions.
I was gonna call you Councilmember Mack. Councilmember Jessup.
Random question. What exactly would be the operator? What does the operator do for this?
So,
that they're trying to find?
basically there's state training courses and you have to get a licensure similar to a civil engineer, if you will, to operate the system. And that isn't really a common thing. So it's in very high demand.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other agencies, namely out in Tri-Cities and even our neighbor with Wawa, where they pay quite a bit of money. And then we pay good too, but for these little irrigation districts, they were so used to the past decades, you could pay whoever some money and run it. But those operators who were willing to do it on a budget, if you will, they're retiring. And there's no one around who wants that. And then, so that's really the issue. And with irrigation 14, I would almost say it really is a priority because they cover a fairly decent proportion of people who are city residents.
Yeah, right on. Thanks.
Just a few questions. I know we've been working with the Villages
Yeah.
HOA. Do you have any concerns of potential pushback by residents there or perhaps people who are connected to the water districts of the city taking them over? Anything at all? I just wondering
Yeah.
if anything might get in the way.
Well, I mean, the Villages, the Leather to Help, which was in previous items, that was the master HOA, pretty much throwing up the white flag. So I think there's going to be no pushback at all from them. They realize the situation they're in. It's not good. With irrigation 14, they've been talking about this for a while. So, really, there isn't much of a choice. That's like macroeconomics at work. Now, I will say with the irrigation 12 and 9, you may, because with those, it tends to go into the periphery of the area. But I think once we have that study, it's going to show what the liabilities are, what needs to be done. And I mean, frankly, the state law is pretty direct as far as like the conditions of being an operator. So if you don't want to like play along, they're going to end up having an issue with State Department of Health because all those water operators are going to be spoken for.
Okay, I just want to make sure we don't go through all this time, effort, money. I know it's other, but raising the money just to end up with these small little pushbacks that could, blow up the whole progress, I guess, of what you're trying to do here.
I mean, villages of Garrison Creek, I think that's going to get to an issue where if we don't get ahead of it, the state's outright just going to step in and make it happen. And then with irrigation 14, I mean, pretty much there's no choice.
All right.
So,
any other questions or comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion for this resolution?
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 24-055, which directs city administrator to pursue State of Washington Department of Health Water System Consolidation Planning Feasibility Study grants for villages of Garrison Creek HOA Water System and Irrigation District number 14 system.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second. Go ahead, please. Second.
All right, Councilmember Cleveland was a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. All right, let's see, we're to our last one. Wow, that was pretty quick. Okay, last action item is a contract with Colton Consulting Services for federal lobbying.
Okay, thank you. So as y'all know, over the past year and a quarter, we contracted with Desmond Consulting because when he came out of the federal Senate, John Colton moved under that umbrella. However, he's been so successful getting everyone earmarks and stuff. He is now going out on his own because he's like, why should I be making them money? And I'm just like host. So well, it's the truth. So with that, he started his own firm. So really it's just moving over to him. And I mean, we've barely utilized him over a year and he's already gotten us over 12 million. So definitely worth the investment.
Absolutely. Councilmember Jessup. Councilmember Cleveland. Councilmember Espinosa.
What's the cost to the city for the services?
36,000. It's the same as it's been, so it's in the budget. So 3,000 a month.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Councilmember Peterson, do you have time to any questions or comments? Okay, Councilmember Williams,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Sherman.
There's not any sort of terms in the contract with the company that he's coming with, like he can leave them and take us?
Yeah.
That's okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we checked with that, so.
All right, give him our congratulations.
Yeah.
All right, so if there's no further questions or comments, do we have a motion for this resolution?
I'll motion to approve resolution number 24-056, which sends notice of termination to Desmond Consulting and authorizes the city administrator to sign contract for federal lobbying services to Colton Consulting Services.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All that approve, say aye. I
I,
totally lost my words. Any opposed? All right, it's unanimous. The ayes have it and the motion is passed. It's a good thing that was the last one. All right, Mike, we gave you 7 things to go busy with, or 6 things to get busy, go over there and get taken care of. There's no informational reports and there's no administrative reports. Sorry, I skipped over administrative reports. So there's none there and there's no informational. However, we do have an executive session tonight, and I think it's been a while since we've had an executive session. So the purpose of the executive session is to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of increased price pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, Section B. Myself and the following people will be in attendance at the executive session. Council members Jessup, Cleveland, Espinosa, Peterson, Williams, and Sherman. City Attorney Colwell, City Administrator Rosatello, Finance Director Carlton, and Deputy City Clerk Athen Reed. We will now adjourn to the executive session for 10 minutes. We will return to open session at 7:54 PM. Online council members and attending staff, please use the link provided earlier by the clerk to enter the executive session meeting. I ask that all other in-person staff and members of the public, please wait in the lobby until we reconvene. I now call the meeting back. Not yet.
Again, we can't hear anything.
Can you hear me? Okay, no one was talking before, that's why. All right, we are good to go.
All right, I now call the meeting back to order at 7:58 PM. Can you hear us online? Yes, perfect. Okay. On that note, is there any other business for good of the order? Nothing? Nothing online?
Just that we should state in the open meeting that we discussed a possible purchase of real estate. That council gave direction to staff, but no decision was made.
Okay, do I need to repeat that or were you saying it good enough? All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for taking care of that.
I have a quick question. Are we having any trouble? Are our employees having any trouble with the heat?
We've extended extra breaks and then for them to start earlier and then for some of the city contracts, we're gonna put out stuff on social media about some of our construction projects starting a little earlier in the day because of the extreme heat. The next day they're doing some intrusive work like Lift Station 5 on Southwest First and then the Northeast Damson project as well as Lions Park.
Okay, good. I don't want anybody pushing on our behalf
Yeah.
when they shouldn't. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? All right, so if there is nothing more, do we have a motion to conclude? Okay, Lauren moved and Michael second. Michael seconds. So if there's no objection, the meeting is concluded at 8:00 PM exactly. Thanks, everyone.
Good job.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Yeah.